Good morning and welcome to this month's version of Wake Up West Coast. My name is Jody Ozarski. I have the privilege of being on the team here at the West Coast Chamber and excited to have you back with us this morning. I'm particularly excited because of the topic today. This is an area that we've really been diving into, and I think you're going to be intrigued by what you hear this morning. We're excited as well because this education topic has brought out a number of people with us today, including a group of students. So it's good to have the students with us. If you have students at your table, please make them feel welcome as they kind of be a little intimidating walking into this room. And so we're thrilled to have students here as a part of this morning. We're also thankful for our sponsors this morning. We had a morning mingle sponsor. Hopefully you had a chance to meet the team from Landscape Design Services. Would you join me and thank them for their sponsorship this morning? They're really gearing up for that busy season, and so if you're looking for those landscape services, Matt is here as well as other members of their team. I'm sure they'd be happy to talk with you about how they might be able to help meet those needs. In addition, we have a program sponsor today, and that's GMB. GMB has an extra special place in our heart. David Bolt is here with us this morning, and he is our board chair. So my boss sitting next to us this morning. So we'll take a moment to hear a little update from GMB.
Thanks, Jody. I won't take too much of your time so we can get to the good stuff here this morning. GMB has been a part of this community since 1968, and we've been chamber members the whole time. Our work helps schools and educational institutions thrive, and that's why we support the work of this chamber, because this chamber is committed to things like learning and learning events like we have here today. This chamber is committed to innovative solutions like connecting our educational institutions to our business community. It's also why we support transformational educators like Dave and Travis and the work that they're doing, as we think it's really important. And so finally, I just want to say thank you all to our business community for supporting our amazing schools in this area and helping us all work towards a better future of abundance. So thank you.
Thanks, Dave. You have been an incredible support to me personally and to our organization through your leadership. So we're so appreciative of that, as well as the sponsorship that you continue to provide to help us do the work that we do. You know that if you come to a West Coast Chamber event, we're always going to include some networking, so you've got an opportunity to get to know the people that you're sitting with this morning. And so here's what we're going to do. We'll take a couple minutes for you to go around the table and introduce yourself with your name, your company, and then a topic that everyone should be able to address. What was your favorite subject or class taken in school? So we'll give you a couple minutes to go ahead and network, and then we'll get started with the program. All right. Here we go. So back in June of 2022, the Chamber took time to review our core values, and at that point, we decided to change one of our core values from think big, be great, to be a trailblazer. We thought that that better spoke to the kind of work that we really thought we needed to do. We needed to go where others had not gone and to do trailblazing work. Fast forward to November of 2022, and I got an email from Travis Williams, and it was kind of outlining some big ideas that he had about education and the future of education based on work that he was already doing. And he asked if the Chamber would consider being involved in that work. And knowing that this was going to be trailblazing opportunities, that was a quick yes for me. I'm excited for you to be able to hear today from Travis and from Dave Tebow from the ISD about this trailblazing work that they're doing, the future of education, and how we as a business community might be able to come around them to extend that learning in new and innovative ways. So I'm excited. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Travis Williams and Dave Tebow.
Thank you. First, before we get started, how many people have seen the movie Dumb and Dumber? Okay, so when we conclude today, you need to decide which one of us is Jim Carrey and which one of us is Jeff Daniels. And
That's fair.
I'll leave that for you all to decide. as Jody shared, like, first I want to just give clarity to something, and that's that quite often when you're in a role that I'm in our organization, people will say work that I'm doing, and I want to be clear that I'm probably not the one doing most of the things that we're going to talk about today. We have an incredible group of people that work in our organization, and we even have a more incredible group of people that we partner with, like Dave and the ISD and Jody and the Chamber, to get stuff done. So as I share today, as Dave shares today, just know that there's literally hundreds of people behind all of what we're about to share that are really the people doing the work. So to start with, just want to open up by letting you know that our organization has been busy doing education work in a variety of ways in this community for a long time, 24 years. We've been pretty well known for stuff that we've been doing in the early childhood sector, and really partnered a lot. Dave formerly was with Hamilton Community Schools, where we partnered to start a preschool together, a nature-based school. So we go way back in a lot of our interactions, and what we really want to share today is that it's kind of, we're reaching kind of a peak point, a tipping point maybe you would say, in the educational efforts that we've had collaboratively going on. We deeply view that we have amazing educators in amazing schools in our community, and I can say that I have worked with them for 24 years, and Dave has as well. This is really about how do we help make our community a better place. And we do that by not standing back and casting stones or allowing somebody to have to shoulder all the responsibility to move a heavy rock a long distance. We do it by helping do that. And so today's presentation is going to be sharing with you about how a group of people, starting with a small group and growing now to a much larger group, are really trying to help move the needle by wrapping our arms around our school systems. We believe that teachers should not be saddled with the job of educating our kids on their own. It's actually a community effort. And so that's what we're excited to share with you. And so I'm going to let Dave start by giving a little bit of background on some things. So.
Perfect. So the fact that we actually are sharing a stage is a little much. We promised to behave ourselves today, and I got my mic back on and everything. I think I broke it. If anybody has the West Coast Chamber magazine with Travis on the front, he will sign autographs when we're done. You can Venmo me $5, Dave Tebow, and I'll make sure that we do that. And then Hannah, if you could make the big picture of Travis drop. Oh, sorry. I got an icon, so I'm lucky that some of the glow gets to come off of here. And I break my microphone. All right, are we good still?
Can you get a sub?
Let's upgrade Travis's partner. So one of the things that we want to talk about today is, and as a former superintendent, I'm going to acknowledge some things in the room. And like Travis said, this isn't an opportunity for us we're not placing blame anywhere. This is a really big thing. When we think about educating the whole child, like truly the whole child, this is a really large endeavor. It's a big lift. When we think about the knowledge that they need and the skills that they need and the habits that they need and the experiences that this is a big, big lift. And unfortunately, if you're in higher ed, I'm not taking a shot at higher ed either, but you have some things to fix. Just like education has some things to fix. We all do. But teacher preparation programs don't prepare our teachers to walk in and educate the whole child. They just don't right now, because that's not what gets measured. What gets measured in education is how well you do on a standardized test. What you do on an ACT or an SAT or your GPA, those are things that we tell kids to aspire to regardless of the other stuff. Get that GPA, score well on that test, and all will be okay. That's not how life works. That's not how all of you are successful. You don't sit down and take a standardized test at the end of the year to see if you get to keep your employment or not. That doesn't happen, right? But we spend a lot of time working with kids on that part of it. And teachers do it because that's what they were trained to do. And so when we think about wrapping our arms around teachers and helping them do all these heavy things, it's going to take more than just the school system to do that. We are evaluating them based on test measures and scores. We have the unintended consequences of high stakes evaluation that live inside of the educational system. And so now, if you don't score well on a test, if your kids don't score well, and the district by some reason has to make layoffs, the teachers who don't have kids that score well are the ones that are looking and at risk to be let go. That doesn't take into account a lot of stuff, right? Like, what are those kids walking into the classroom with? Are their basic needs met? As a group of, do they have a group of them that have, more challenges than another group? And we have to think about all of that. And those kids need to be engaged in different ways. All of us need to be engaged in different ways. Jody asked us to talk about our favorite classes. This room had a whole lot of people say a whole lot of different things about what your favorite class was. And when we think about, just if I took you and asked you to think about and share with us what those classes were, think about what that means for the 55,000 kids that are in school across this county right now. That's a lot of diversity, and that's a lot to ask a single teacher to do in a group of kids, 25 to 30 kids at a time, or a high school teacher to do with 150 kids in an English class that they're going to see for 55 minutes a day and have all of that responsibility on their shoulders. They're doing a phenomenal, phenomenal job. But your ask as business owners and as a society is different today than it was 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And our educational landscape has to adjust to meet those expectations. The ask is different. So the system needs to be different. And we need to support our teachers and our administrators and our schools in a different way. And we want to talk a little bit about how we're having some success in doing that. So we're trying to change the value system of what goes on by wrapping around the school. A lot of things. It's really easy. As somebody who sits in this community, I could sit and look and tell you as a business, I think you should do this. You should do this. We can do things to you, but as a business, you go, thanks for the input. I'm going to go about my business. Schools right now are being told what to do by a lot of different people. And as polarized as a community or a society can be, it lands in the classrooms across our county. And we need to stop telling them what to do or how to do it, but we need to walk along and come and do it with them. We don't want this to be something that we do to educators. This process, this collaboration is let's do with. Let's walk with you. Let's stand with you. Let's find ways that we can take that math that sits in your classroom and make it applicable out in the world of work, where we can answer the question of why. Students ask, why do I need to learn this? And we say, because I told you so. Because I said, right? That doesn't work anymore. That society isn't here. So when we think about all of that, we, in this reimagining education work, are looking at a number of different things. One of those things is, where does learning happen? Every single person in here in the last week has learned something. And you didn't learn it in a 25 by 25 cinder block classroom with 25 desks all in a row, or tables in a group, or whatever those flexible learning environments look like for those teachers who have said, you know what, I don't need to be the font of knowledge and sit at the front of my stage, but I want to work with my kids. All of you learned something, somewhere, somehow. The other day, my car started rattling underneath, and I thought, oh man, what's going on? I learned that my muffler cracked off from where it comes out of the thing. I also learned that I don't know how to weld, and I probably should leave this thing alone, okay? Right? But I searched it up. I looked on YouTube to see if I could figure it out on my own, and then I decided that's probably not in my best interest. I'm going to get an expert, right? But I have to do that learning to figure that out. All of you do that on a regular basis. And we want to transform the methods of learning. You don't do worksheets. Our kids shouldn't do all worksheets, and I'm not saying that they do. Please don't take this. I'm using some generalized examples. I'm not saying this is what happens. But our traditional way of getting back, does a kid know something? They have to give us some artifact of learning. And when you have 25 to 30 kids, you've got to be able to score those quickly. There's an efficiency in the system. It's not the teacher's fault. The system wants it to be efficient. So we give things to try to be efficient and meet the needs of a lot of kids. We've got to transform the methods of those learning, where we learn. So change where we learn, change how we learn. And every single one of you in this space, and it happened at our table, and I would venture to say if you didn't bring it up in your table conversation, this will hold true for you. You said what your favorite class was. I'm going to go out on a limb and bet that class sometimes didn't have anything to do with the content of the class, but the teacher who taught it. Relationships matter. Connection matters. And when we try to batch kids and roll them through a system, one group at a time, year after year after year after year, and we put a bunch of kids in one single superhero's classroom and say, get to know deeply every one of those kids. The kid who woke up and had everything. Mom had clothes laid out, breakfast was ready, dad was there to give him a hug and pat him on the butt. To the kid who watched his dad punch his mom, who didn't eat, who didn't sleep because his parents were fighting the night before. Those kids show up every day. And those teachers in our classrooms cannot do that alone. That's a heavy, heavy lift. So how do we re-engage them? Travis has been doing a lot of work, and I'm letting him talk about it.
So there's, starting back in 2016, we entered into a journey as an organization to start to really look at how we could help other schools begin to implement things that we had been doing through our nature-based preschool environment that we had been operating. So if you're not aware, we have 4 of them that operate in our community right now, and they've been under pretty heavy demand. And what we saw repeatedly was there's about 90 kids, and it's grown now to be a couple hundred kids that graduate out of the program every year. The parents would ask, where do I send my kid from here to get the same kind of education? Literally that. We actually surveyed 2 years in a row, and 100% of the parents exiting our schools asked, where do I send my child to continue this type of education? And at the time, the answer was there weren't any other options in our general community. And so we started to say, what do we do? And I cannot tell you how many times I have been asked to start a school, which was a terrible idea. I should not start a school.
Terrible idea.
I do not want to start a school. There'd be no need to start a school. But what I do believe is that we have a lot of amazing schools in our community. We have a lot of amazing educators and leaders in our community in the education world. And we could help them do some of what we do to grow that experience beyond the walls of our preschool environment that we were running and into the K-12 education system. So we started to work on that. And what we did is really looked at it in the 4 buckets you see on the screen right now. So it really is easy to start on the outdoor enrichment side, which is just getting kids to leave the classroom. And that's super important. Your brain does not develop under fluorescent lights sitting inside. Your brain develops when your senses are fully engaged and all the neural connections are firing, and then you start having experiences. That's how you actually grow and learn the brain, right? So we knew that we needed to help schools begin to implement more of this in the classrooms. And that's where we start. So we do all kinds of outdoor enrichments, and it's kind of a continuum, as you can see on that arrow there. So then there's out-of-school programs that we've gotten involved with, which is after school, summer school. This last year, our organization had 1,000 children a day from 6 school districts in nature-based summer school. 1,000 kids a day last summer. So we got into doing more of that work. That has led us to what we have really started to call an ambassador school. So we have several ambassador schools now, or connected schools, and that's where we send somebody from our team. A lot of them are retired educators that believe in what we are doing. And so we have really had several folks that have come to our organization over the last 5 years roughly that have retired, but said, I'm not done on my education journey. I want to help other schools do this, as well as we have people who are not educators, who are biologists or have some other profession that links to what we do, that we have been able to place in the schools to support the school, to walk alongside the teachers and the administrators to implement more connected, hands-on, contextual-based learning. That has been the game changer, and that's what we really want to talk to you about here. And that's what's leading to what we start to call reimagining schools in. So we have reimagining school partners now, and we have a handful of them that are going deeply into that area, where we have people every single day in their school buildings helping their teachers co-lead, co-plan, facilitate classes, answer questions, help mentor and support the whole building, including the administrator, because it has to be from the top down support as well. This is just a list of some of the folks that are working with us right now, and this list continues to change. Our phone rings very frequently, but you'll see on the left-hand side kind of a list of different ambassador partnership schools, current summer school partnerships. On the right, you see there's after-school programs. We have non-traditional partnerships. We have online programs that you're going to be surprised by this, but when you put kids in an online program all the time, and they have no social interaction with another student, and they don't see face-to-face an adult, that's not good for them. I'm sure that's not a surprise for you. So what they started doing, we started having people say, well, could you start a field class? Could we send students from our online program to have adult interaction, to be around other students? We have homeschool programs that are doing that now. We have school districts that are doing homeschool things to get kids into gym classes and other elective type courses. So we've really leaned into this, and this work has been big. And we're now at over 30 schools that we're working with. And this is generally what it looks like. So if you look at on the right-hand side, you see kind of a teacher, an ambassador, and a student. And that's what this is kind of what we've been doing. Then there's going to be a model you'll see in a bit about what we're leaning into as we go forward. But that's what happens in the building. So we have co-planning, co-teaching, there's curriculum resource. So we bring a lot of resources. ODC has tons and tons of resources that most schools probably wouldn't have. We bring them in, use them in a building, can bring them back, take them to a different school the next day. So we're sharing resources and, again, bringing our arms around the school district to help the teachers be able to do things that they probably, in most cases, have wanted to do but did not have the resources or the know-how to do. They just simply didn't know how to do it. They're not trained to take 30 kids outside and try to mitigate behavior problems, teach a curriculum or course. As Dave said, our higher ed institutions don't educate our education world on how to do that very well. On the other side of the building, you'll see the check-ins piece, and that's where we've been meeting with the administrators in the building to make sure that there's buy-in from the top down. Because the last thing you want to do is get a teacher all excited about doing something and have the administrator say, nope, we're not going to support that. And unfortunately, that does happen. So we want to make sure both sides are buying in. And so this has been the model that we started out with. And this is what it looks like on a day-to-day basis. These students are doing ELA, the English Language Arts. They're doing their math. They might be doing social studies. They certainly can do science all outside. Every day it can happen. I like to share the story. We've had school groups that we've worked with, especially in the summer school programs. You can take kids fishing. Sounds like, okay, what are you really doing there? You're just taking kids fishing. Well, first you could read a book about fish. You could read a book about fishing. You could read a book about a family member taking a younger child fishing. You can create some context. You can take kids fishing. Then you can weigh the fish. You can measure the fish. You can write down what species it is. You catch 100 fish in a day with a group of kids, you can find out the average length, the average weight, the mass of fish that you caught, the population of fish in a particular body of water. You can do all sorts of math with that. You can have students write about that experience. We find kids that will write maybe a sentence and probably an incomplete sentence before you start doing things like that. We'll write 6 pages, and I'm not exaggerating, we'll write 6 pages after an experience like that because we've put context and meaning behind the learning. If it means something to you, like Dave wanting to know how to fix his muffler, you'll look into it deeper, right? And so that's really what this has been about. So every day in our schools that we have been working with now, we do 5 things. We tie literacy beyond the classroom. So literacy's been a staple in the whole thing of trying to make sure that there's meaningful connections to literacy. And so you'll see that happen in our schools. And the ones you can see listed at the top there, Holland Christian, Holland Heights, and Jenison, are 3 that we've been deeply working in this for multiple years now doing this work. 1 off-site learning experience per week for an extended period of time. That literally means leaving the school campus 1 time a week. I've had people all the time saying, well, if schools can't afford to do that. Yeah, they can. And you know what? You can walk kids places, and there's all sorts of opportunities that you can buy into. We've been doing it for multiple years. There's daily on-site nature-based play and learn. Kids need to get up and move. Behavior generally starts with kids who are being told to sit in rows, toes in rows, you hear that, or sit at a table under fluorescent lights and do something that means nothing to them in their mind. And then we get upset when they act out. Well, what do you expect to have happen? If I did that to you, you'd probably act out to me, right? So
if you guys at this point want to yell at him because you've been sitting, that's a good time to let Travis have it.
So we want them to have these meaningful experiences, and this is not recess. Kids need to play, and especially younger kids. But you know what? Even older kids need to get up and move. And Dave and I can both talk to you about examples in other countries as well, where kids leave the classroom for an hour or more a day to get exercise, to get fresh air, because again, that's what's best for the brain, and that's how you better function. We all know that you can't sit and learn for 7 straight hours in a day. That's ludicrous. The brain doesn't work that way. So we have to provide these experiences to kids. And then we do this weekly co-planning and teaching with our ambassadors, and we also have this monthly stakeholder meeting with the whole building, with the district leadership. And doing those 5 things has happened in the schools that we've been working with. And I'm going to let Dave talk about this. There's 6 pillars here, of which we've focused on in each, and then we'll dive into some of the results that we've gotten.
Yep, so I'm going to quickly walk you through this. I talked a little bit about it already. When we think about the whole child, the totality of who you are as a whole being and the totality of what a child is, we really need to start to give feedback to our learners and to ourselves, honestly, about these buckets that we can break out. And we really need to think about that, because for us to teach content, there's a specific way and there are strategies that help us to teach kids content. But all of you need, as employers or as a community in a whole, you need kids who come out with a skill set as well. You need them to understand what collaboration looks like. What is teamwork? What is good communication? How are we creative in how we attack a problem? That's separate from Algebra 1, Algebra 2, English 9, right? And then we also need, our kids and all of us need to have habits of mind. Those things that we need to practice that we develop differently. Being on time. Dave Tebow still needs to work on being on time. However, today, I knew I was presenting with Travis, so I made sure I was early because I don't want to give him any fodder to come after me later. Mr. Lubbers will be on a text screen at some point that will tell me what I did wrong today, so that will get critiqued. But I'll get feedback on my habits, right? What does it look like to manage your time, okay? Right? What does it mean to develop voice and agency? How we do that with learners is different. How we teach it is different than how we teach content. When we think about how we apply learning, I love sometimes that now we've spent enough time together in a really weird way that he says things and I'm like, dang, he's saying what I've been saying for a while. Like, he actually listens. Most of the time I think he just tunes me out, and that's probably true. But he does pick up some of this. And one of those things is when we take content and skills and we learn it in an experience or in context, learning becomes sticky. Right? We now have, what we're doing in our brain is we're building schema. We're giving new learning something to hang on with past learning. But when we just do math in a vacuum and then we say go apply it in a real lifetime, even our best math students have a hard time applying that math out into a real life space because we don't always couch it in an experience. So we need to do that. Social capital is really, really important. And we need kids to understand how to and when they're developing social capital, right? My daughter works at DeBoer Bakery. Tim Gertz basically lives at DeBoer Bakery. My daughter has met Tim. At some point, if my daughter decides that she's going to do something in the world of architecture or somewhere in business, she's connected to somebody. She's built social capital. Somebody who might help her open a door someday or might give her context for her learning, right? Those things are important. Scott Lubbers, my son knows Scott Lubbers. If my son needs a loan, I wouldn't give it to him, Scott. But if he needs a job, he might be able to go to Scott, right? But we think about that. How do we expose that? And we have to intentionally do that, which is why we need more of you connecting and engaging with our kids so that they know you, so they build their social capital, so your story resonates. I can tell my son and daughter something all day long, and they think I'm crazy because I'm their parent. Travis can tell my son how to do something, and he'll actually listen. I worry about that in a deep way, but he'll actually listen, which is wonderful, right? And then we need to engage our families. We need to not do what school does, and we don't. COVID changed this for us in a good way, but we used to, as schools, and I was a superintendent for 15 years, we used to put up this thing, Mike Smoker calls it the buffer, and we'd put up this educational buffer, and we'd say, hey, parents, community, families, you stay over there, give us our kids, we'll take care of them. Over here, we'll do what we need to do, right? But we need that opening of the doors to understand and really understand what's going on in our families. Our families look different than they looked 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago. We're not going to put that toothpaste back in the tube. But we have to, because of that, we have to work differently with our kids. So we've got some proof of concept results built on a lot of years of impact. I'm going to turn this back over to Travis. But when this started back in 2016, the two of us have been doing this thing for a while. It's probably why you see some of this self-deprecating humor that we put back and forth, right? Because we don't take ourselves too seriously. We've iterated and prototyped, and we've failed together, and we've picked each other up when something doesn't work. And we're at the point now where we're really starting to see some synergy in this. This started back in Hamilton a long time ago, back in 2016, and I'm going to let him talk about the evolution.
So, well, before I go to the straight stats, so what Dave just mentioned was that in 2016, because again we had started this preschool together, one of the teachers in his school district, Ted Malphite, who is a project-based learning, actually a coach and teacher, and he works for the Buck Institute doing stuff. Ted had said, I have a bunch of students that are struggling, they're going to probably drop out. We need to give them a different experience. And so they ended up starting, fast story, this thing called Conservation Crew. And it was an elective class, and there was about 15, 20 students in the class, and they went out and actually did hands-on stuff. And they started just working pretty much just with ODC. We'd give them all kinds of outdoor-based projects, try to link it back educationally to things that they could take in terms of what Dave just shared, the skills for life, habits for success, all that kind of stuff. And it worked really, really well, and it evolved into what was then called Stream School, which was a project-based learning class it started with 7th grade, then we did it with 8th grade, then we added 6th grade, then we added 9th grade, and it would blend a bunch of topical or subject matters together. So there would be when we moved it around as we prototyped it, but we had math and science and English language arts and art and all different kinds of subjects that would be paired, and they would be taught by the same group of people for the entire afternoon in the same class, and they'd all be blended together. So just like I shared the fishing lab, where you could do math and you could do ELA, and you could do multiple subjects, science, all in the same class at the same time. Students hardly even understand that they're actually doing school. And then we would start introducing them to professionals in the world, like folks like you, so that you could weigh in and help them, because they would be trying to solve for community problems, or they'd have driving questions that they were trying to answer, and then we'd link them with the social capital of who they'd know in the community. That program worked beautifully. And then now that has evolved into the other things that we're sharing here. But here's some of the results that we have achieved. And I say we, it's not us up here on the stage, but we as a community, because some of these are results that are coming out of various school buildings, and these are from multiple schools. So all those different schools that I put up there, grabbed a little bit of data from various schools, but we had 8th grade ELA classes having 22% improvements in their grade level placements. K-4 reading programs eliminating their summer slide after working in this contextual-based process. We've seen huge reductions in behavior across all the school districts we work with. And again, remember, if behavior drops down, guess what happens? Teacher satisfaction goes up. If you're a teacher and the kids in your classroom behave and are engaged, it's a whole lot easier to be a teacher. And it's a whole lot more fun to be a teacher. And it's a whole lot more fun to be a student. And then the engagement even increases more. And then the outcomes get better. And that's what we are seeing happening in these schools. It's not a rocket science thing. We are not changing the curriculum. We are not coming in and saying, you need to teach this way and you need to do this or that. What we're coming in and doing is saying, hey, you got to do that fractions thing. What if we do this? Go outside with the kids and do your fractions this way. And we help them do it. We remove some of the risk and the fear and the anxiety around it. We put an extra person in to help them, or two, and we make it easier to have it happen. And so you start seeing 77% of students, when there was only maybe 20 in the school that were reading proficient by January, jumping up to 77%. Huge gains. And really the big variables that were changing was just how we were engaging the kids contextually in their learning, how we were supporting the teachers, how we were supporting the administration in the building, how we were engaging the families. And so how do we sustainably grow or scale this work? It's really the big question, right? So we were doing this, it was going well, but we had this opportunity in front of us. We could go farther. We could do more. That's when I started emailing people like Jody and saying, how can we do this better? And one of the things that we knew right away is that we needed to have a better connection with their business community. So that's why I reached out to Jody and I was like, are you willing to help with this? And Dave and I had been in these conversations, and there's other schools that had been talking to us about this work saying we really want to do more. We knew that this was something that we could do. And so we started to put together, this is what we kind of refer to as our ecosystem around this. We have this Reimagining Education Value System in West Michigan as kind of this overarching thing that we want to look at. And what we mean by that is that we want to bring more value to the schools by wrapping our arms around them and supporting them. We're not here to tell Nick Cassidy how to be a superintendent at Holland Public Schools. And we're not here to tell him which curriculum to pick and use. But we're here to help support him in any way we possibly can to bring all the things you just heard from us and share it with the students and the teachers. So you see there's a whole lot of words on the screen, but we want to integrate in place. We want to transform relationships. We want to expand experiences. We're going to do this through creating teacher summits, by creating these community support systems, by allowing this ambassador support to exist. You see a bunch of logos in the middle. There's a group of folks that have joined this advisory board that we've put together to help lean into this work further. You can see that it's not just us up here on the stage, but it's actually a really wide network of people. We have amazing support and engagement with West Ottawa Public Schools, Holland Public Schools, Jenison Public Schools, really leaning deeply in. We've been doing this work for a long time with Holland Christian. So we really want to find some of these partners that want to lean deeply into this, and then we want to pour into it even more. And what it looks like going forward is a slightly modified version of that last graphic I showed you. What you'll see clearly on this one on the right-hand side is you see that business liaison person. And what we're creating is actually a position at the West Coast Chamber of Commerce in this. Jody and the team are working this out, where we will have somebody on staff at the chamber that when a school needs to connect with a business, they can call that person and they can find out who's the best person to maybe connect them with for whatever topical thing that might be. So that is a huge, it may seem simple, but if you're a teacher and you have all the things teachers have on their plates, that's the last thing you have time to think about doing. That's the last place you think about turning to. So we want to remove some of those barriers and simplify the access to somebody that has the connections already in place. The teachers don't need to have that connection. There's enough of us out there that do. So you'll see that. We're also adding in an ambassador assistant because as the work scales, we have to add more people to the building. And we envision that will continue to grow. On the left side, you kind of see the ISD leadership there, building administration, the ambassador, the leadership ambassador, the district administrator, all coming together around this check-in point. And again, that remains a crucial part of this process. This is not just about a teacher and somebody from ODC connecting. That's great if that happens, but that's not the model we're building. We're building a community model around this.
Yeah, I think that's really important for us to point out is that, innovation in grain size where you have one teacher who's really, really excited, who does this work, we can support them. But if that's not supported inside of the district, if the curriculum director's not on board, if the superintendent's not on board, if the building principal's not on board, then that teacher is on an island on their own, right? And we've watched a lot of that burnout happen. One of the things that I'm proud of, but it was difficult, was Travis stole two of my best teachers when I was in Hamilton, right? And part of that was because they were the teachers working in a stream school, and they were working so hard, and we couldn't kind of do this thing that we've matured to and wrap that ongoing support around them. And they were running out and getting the supplies to do a hands-on activity, and they're out running at Myers till 10 o'clock at night. They have kids at home, and they finally were like, look, I love this work. And it's burning me out. It's hurting my relationships with my kids, with my wife, with my family, with those people. And so that's where this came from, was how do we do this differently? How do we put some resources in place to help the teachers who are running with a full backpack make it over the finish line? They need some help. And that's a good thing. It's about time that all of us at some point have a little bit of vulnerability, myself included, to say, we can't do this thing alone. We can't have a bunch of superhero teachers that burn themselves out doing phenomenal things, and they're not taking care of themselves. Because if they're not taking care of themselves, they're not taking care of our kids, right? And what we're talking about is really, really powerful. And so we've got, was this me or you?
Go ahead.
I'll take it because I'm already talking. But we have a visionary board. We know that the two of us only see so much. Our lens, our frame of reference is limited by our experiences. So we've reached out to a lot of other people to come in. And this visionary board will talk about big picture, how do we do this? Like, what's the North Star and how are we getting to that point? And checking in and holding us accountable and thinking about this from all the different levels. And then we need to come up with a local advisory team, right? And that's the people, boots on the ground, locally that understand the fabric of the place and what experiences and what connections are there and where we're at.
And I'll add to that, what West Ottawa needs is not the same
Correct.
as what Fenville needs or Saugatuck. What Holland needs maybe isn't the same thing that Grand Haven needs. So we can't build some one-size-fits-all model and think we can deploy that and support everybody. So we're really looking at how we do that at the building or district level to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the group that we're working with.
Yeah, I think that's really well said, Travis. I think when we talk about what's the grain size, it's the building, right? The classroom's too small. The district's too big. The building is that right size. But we need to figure out, because as a superintendent, I had 4 elementary buildings. The culture in each one of those elementary buildings was different. And when we said, let's do something with you, we have to acknowledge the culture of the space, right? The culture of the people. And that's really important. And that's where those advisory teams really get that feedback loop. And then we're going to have some summit development. We want to create learning communities so our ambassadors who are working in different districts are sharing with each other. Teachers who are working in this space are sharing with each other. Administrators are sharing with each other. So part of this is, yes, we know it's customized, but then we've got to also cross-cut through those roles that we have inside of our organizations so that there's other support other than the people that you just work with on a regular basis. There's some other people that are there. And this is a pretty cool team.
So we have this group, this is our visionary board, and the idea here was there's representatives from our business community, there's representatives from our partnering schools, there's folks from higher ed on here, and it's just a mix of experiences and talent of people who want to be a part of this effort. And so we put these folks together to help us guide our process, guide how we are leaning into this and how we're deploying this work in our community. So watching.
We've got 5 minutes, so I'm going to go really, really fast. A lot of what we talked about is with some of our younger kids. There's a ton of power in engagement in giving kids not just voice, but agency over their own learning. And when we get to those higher levels, we really want to use this model to work on things like credit recovery. If you didn't get the credit in the model that you were in, how about we don't give you that same exact model one more time and hope you get it the next time? If I said to you, if you came to me and said, Dave, I got a headache, and I give you 2 Tylenol, and you come back an hour later and you say, Dave, I got a headache again, I give you 2 Tylenol, and you come back an hour later and you say, I still have a headache, and I give you 2, you're going to stop asking me to help you at some point because I'm giving you the same thing, expecting the result to change, right? So this model is going to help us do that. We want to listen to our kids. Schools don't do a great job of listening to our kids. Those of you kids, students that are in here, use your voice. If an adult tells you no, find another adult, right? Because we need to hear from you. What's engaging for you? What do you want to learn? How do you want to learn? But then when we do that and try to customize that for every single kid with a single adult response for those, that's tough, right? That's why this is so important for us to wrap around them differently. We want to show how and where the learning gets applied. So work-based learning, career pathways, business communities. We want field classes where kids are going out and they're doing the work somewhere else. We're making it sticky. We're making it engaging outside of a cinder block classroom that we have. We want more work-based learning opportunities. Career exposure. We want to grow their social capital. I talked a little bit about that. We've got some great pre-service teacher placement programs. Travis shared that GVSU is going to in their program for their preschool teachers. Every student in GVSU is going to spend a semester in this program with Travis and the group that's doing in their nature-based space. That's putting a stake in the ground. Higher ed is listening. They're seeing that we need to, our next generation of teachers needs to have a bunch of different tools in their toolkit as we walk out into that space. And then we want to have summer school employment. We want to talk about, I could get out on this one for a bunch, but I'm not. But think about, like, our kids are working a job and they're getting no school credit in the summer. You have high school kids who work all summer and they're learning and applying their learning, and it doesn't translate back to their high school in any way, manner, fashion, or form. That's a shame. But we need somebody who can bridge the gap. We need a system that can translate that from the world of work into the world of learning so that it makes sense.
And so end all on this is that we decided in order to do this, we set a plan together to say if we were going to lean in with 4 different school partners that we have and reimagining their district buildings, they have to lean in and want what we're talking about here. We could serve 9,000 kids over the next 3 years, 500 educators. Again, reimagine these 4 districts. The cost of doing this, because again, we're talking about basically the cost of the ambassador and then some ancillary things that we do to just support it, was about $411 a student over the 3-year time period. Pretty low amount of money, $137 a year. That's what we've been spending to lean into this work and get the results that we've been sharing here. So we're going to try to take this even further. We started some private fundraising. We've had about $1.5 million contributed to this effort so far. We're taking it out over the next several years to try to see how many more schools we can bring into the fold. We'll continue to grow it as we can. We obviously want to make sure we don't get too big too quick. We don't want to get too far over our skis. But we see this as a game-changing moment and kind of one of those watershed moments for our community where we can try to lean in to support our schools to do something a little bit different. And again, I'll go back and say, why are we doing this? Well, it's because we believe that this community is an incredible place to live, work, play, and learn. And we want our community to even be more incredible. And I will quote one of my favorite people that lives in this community, and that's Dick Hayworth. And that's that we believe that Reimagining Education is foundational effort, and Dick would say this, to ensure that we give our community an unfair competitive advantage. And that's what this is about. And that's the why behind this. Why would we not support our schools in this way? Why would we not wrap our arms around them and give them greater opportunity? So that's what Reimagining School is about. We thank you for listening to us. If you're interested in learning more about this, we would love to talk to you. If you're interested in engaging your business in this, please talk to Jody and Britt. They will be helping to spearhead that work through the chamber on that end. Again, we're just grateful for your leadership in the community and look forward to doing this work in the years to come.
We're going to open up for some questions, and Hannah's going to come around if you've got one. I thought that was really kind of anticlimactic, though, Travis, when you said your favorite person and then listed Dick Hayworth and not me. It's tough. Thanks.
You're my 11th favorite superintendent.
There's 12 districts.
Gentlemen, thank you. I'm energized listening to this, and so I appreciate all that you're bringing to the community. A couple of things, some thoughts and a question. One of the school systems you're partnering with, I happen to work out at a gym with a third grade teacher in one of those school systems. 5:30 in the morning, she's doing CrossFit. She's going to school, 33 kids in her classroom. 11 are on the spectrum of autism. 5 have adult caregivers in the classroom. She has 38 people in the classroom. For her to teach to the kids who aren't on the spectrum, she's losing control because of the disruption. So there's a mainline or mainstreaming of kids into the classroom that is really challenging. So when we talk walking with the teachers, that comes from the administration level. So you've got all the buckets up there that I loved. The other component she struggles with is the parents. They're like, here, take care of my challenging child during the day, and I don't want to hear anything about it. When it comes to conferences, they're not engaged. A lot of them don't show up. So I love those buckets. The one thing that I heard a statistic recently at Econ Luncheon 2 weeks ago. It was a guy that is an he's a professor, ethical leadership professor. And he said, and he's a sociologist, blah, blah, blah. He said, if you look at the statistics for anxiety, depression, self-harm, attempted and successful suicide, 2010, that age 10 to 17, it's doing this. It's climbing. Smartphones, social media. He said, don't get your kids smartphones till they're 16, and parents and schools are gonna have to work together to make them no phone environments. And I don't know how you guys feel about that. I'm assuming with outside work, that's a natural step. But if you wanna speak to the phones.
Absolutely, and I think that's at the core of all of our educational work that ODC's been about. But, you know, I've done other talks for the chamber around the whole getting kids outdoors and unplugged from the electronics. You know, the average child now today spends 7.5 hours a day in front of a screen. And if you think about the amount of time that you're awake and working at school, whatever, it's pretty significant. So we have to address that, and there's research that shows that what you're saying is exactly at the root of a lot of it. So.
Good. I need to cut us off here because of time, but I'm sure that if you've got additional questions, Dave and Travis would be happy to answer those following this presentation. So would you join me in thanking Dave and Travis?
You did that right.
Truly, though, thank you for your commitment to our learners and our community and to this community as a whole. You're doing trailblazing work, and we're absolutely proud to be able to be a part of it. Thank you also to Landscape Design and to GMB for their support of this morning's breakfast. And we look forward to seeing you back here again. April 16, we will have our next Wake Up West Coast. Ann Harton will be speaking on the topic of It's All About Me, the psychology of space. It's actually going to be an absolutely extraordinary presentation. Hope you're able to join us then. With that, make it a remarkable day. Hope to see you back in April.